thing that's been a drag, at least a psychic one, on the economic recovery, and that is the housing market. That combination of higher prices, higher interest rates, and scarce inventory have, for some Americans, made trying to buy a home a fool's errand.
Housing unaffordability has been accelerating in the past few years.
The American dream is pretty much dead.
Is the dream of house ownership over? Today, we solve the mystery of house affordability. Helpline Operator, your unbiased source for information on finance and tech. We've all seen this chart. In the 70 years since 1953, the average purchase price for a house in the United States has increased from $18,000 to nearly $375,000. But when adjusted for house price inflation, the average price has only increased by a factor of less than 2 during 70 years. This is the first clue that house prices are not the problem. During that same 70 years, the size of houses in the United States has increased from 910 square feet, or 85 square meters, to nearly 2,500 square feet, or 230 square meters. That's an increase of 2.7, less than the increase in house prices when adjusted for inflation. At that same time, the number of people living in a house has decreased by about 1 person, meaning the amount of space used per person has increased by a factor of 3.6. This is our next set of clues that house prices are not the problem. When we calculate house cost, we find that even with the increase in materials cost and labor shortages during COVID, on a per square foot basis, the cost of purchasing a house remains low when adjusted for inflation. But what happens when we compare the lowest cost, which was in 1993, at just over $100 per square foot, to today's prices? The increase during 30 years was about 50%. But that only equates to a house price inflation rate of 4%. This is very much in line with the average historical U.S. Consumer Price Index rate of 3.8%. This conclusively demonstrates that house prices, when adjusted for inflation and even with what's called the COVID bump, are at historical lows. Even in the worst-case scenario, the increase in house prices is in line with the historical U.S. Consumer Price Index rate. Next, let's look at how we pay for the purchase of a house. A common misconception is that all cash purchases are pushing out house buyers who use mortgages. In the nearly quarter century since the year 2000, the use of conventional mortgages have been used to purchase an average of 78% of houses. Add in Federal Housing Administration insured mortgages and Veterans Benefits Administration guaranteed mortgages, and the average use of mortgages increases to 95%. While mortgages seem to be higher than ever, they're actually near historic lows. And there remains a downward trend, even with recent increases driven in part by the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank's increases in their overnight federal funds rate. The current 30-year fixed mortgage rate is lower than the 7% average rate during the last 70 years. We've established that neither the cost of houses or mortgages are drivers in house affordability. Since the cost side isn't a factor, that leaves the revenue side of the equation as the culprit. The bottom line is that for the last 70 years, the average annual increase in income has not kept pace with normal house inflation. The difference between 4.5% house inflation and 3.7% income inflation seems low, but it makes all the difference in the world. Our future analysis will look at other key indicators of inflation, including food, energy, and transportation. Then we'll analyze the disparity between why our salaries aren't increasing compared with businesses and governments saying that take-home pay is out of control. And finally, what can be done to resolve these issues? Helpline Operator, your unbiased source for information on finance and tech. We do the detailed research and analysis so you don't have to. Then we give you a quick, to-the-point response. Have a question for us about finance and tech? Reach out to us through our website, YouTube, X, or Instagram. Links are listed below and at helplineoperator.com.